You may have seen this story of this Texas woman, this very young Texas woman who was found living in the Scottish woodland near Jedburgh. This is in the Scottish borders, and she is among a cult who claim they are a lost African tribe of Hebrews that rightfully owns the land. They call themselves the Kingdom of Kubala. It seems hilarious, but once you start digging deeper and deeper, this story is actually very, very dark. Now, I'm going to be reading from a number of sources, including this article called "My Daughter Wanted to Be a Lawyer, Then She Ran Away to Join a Woodland Tribe." This is by Samuel Lovett in the Times UK, plus a number of articles from the New York Post and the Independent. They're both covering this story extensively because it gets interesting, let's say. So we will go over the articles and then I will circle back to some important points that these themes just keep coming up again and again as we cover cults on this channel. I will also include some firsthand video of these people because of course they have a YouTube. Of course they have a YouTube. Now, Kaura Taylor is the legal name of the missing woman. The Kingdom of Kubala encampment, it consists of 3 people, a husband and wife team, plus Taylor. Now, this is an interview with Taylor's mother, Melba Whitehead. Whitehead soon learned that Taylor, 21, had traveled to the UK with her 10-month-old daughter to join a tribe known as the Kingdom of Kubala. There, Taylor, who has renamed herself Asnat, forages in the forest for food, bathes in a nearby stream, and prays every day to a god called Yahweh, while serving as a handmaiden to the group's leader, King Atahine, a former opera singer by the name of Kofi Ofe, and his wife Jean Gasho, who goes by Queen Nandi. Now, this is King Atahine. I do not think you get this figure by foraging for food unless you're foraging at a 7-Eleven. Yo, this is video from their TikTok. Where did you forage this cake in the Scottish forest? Where did you forage these plastic wrapped lamb chops? Get out of here. Also, there is a baby involved, a baby. Taylor went to the UK with her young daughter, whom the family could not locate. They couldn't locate either of them. So that must have compounded their anxiety tenfold. Now, The Independent interviewed Taylor's aunt, Terry Allen, and she said that she had no idea what her niece was doing online. She had no idea. Allen said Taylor kept it totally hidden from the family when she began communicating in 2023 with the so-called Kingdom of Kubala leader, King Atahine, the former opera singer and PR agent from Ghana, whose real name is Kofi Ofe. We went over this. A PR agent. Of course, he's a PR agent. We discussed last week how building a brand and building a cult of personality are very, very similar. Check out that video. The influencer to cult leader pipeline is undefeated, because it is. Also, it looks like I have more material for an upcoming video called The Artist to Cult Leader Pipeline is Undefeated. It all ends in a cult, doesn't it? Anyway. Ofe and Gasho say that they are rulers of this lost tribe of Hebrews and that they are in Scotland to reclaim their stolen land. This land was supposedly stolen from their ancestors 400 years ago when Queen Elizabeth I deported all the Black people from England and Scotland. Now, this is interesting because Queen Elizabeth I did in fact issue a decree to remove Black Moors, as they called them. They called them the Black Moors then. She thought there were too many of them and they were taking English jobs. Doesn't that sound familiar? Now, how many were actually deported is up for debate, with most historians putting the number very, very low, if any at all. However, it does show the historic xenophobia against Black people. Now, the Kingdom of Kubala, these two, would have had a better case if they stuck to the Hebrew thing, because England did very much deport their Jews in a very unfortunate chapter in their history. They exiled them. What we find from the couple's online YouTube page is that the African community in the UK, particularly Gasho's family, are the most vocal against these claims. Now, maybe they have personal relationships with these two and they think that they are just silly from dealing with them. Now, maybe they think the couple is bringing negative press to the African community in the UK, which reflects badly on them. They're trying to clean their own house. And maybe it's because Scottish people are pale as ghosts and melanated people living there would have also evolved to be that pale. So how are these people chocolate colored? The origin story is on its face ridiculous. And yes, it is stirring up a lot of racism from the locals, which is obviously horrible. The Independent has an exclusive with Taylor's aunt, Vandora Skinner, who raised her as a teen. They say, Taylor, who lived with Skinner during her teenage years, was, according to her aunt, a very, very unruly teen who could be very disrespectful, but was always given a lot of latitude at home. She lived in a 4-bedroom house with her own room, and maybe I shouldn't have been as light on her as I was, Skinner said. I allowed her boyfriends to come over, and maybe I shouldn't have. But I did get her to graduate high school. Taylor tried to get her then boyfriend to relocate to the Scottish forest with her, but he was turned off by King Atahene and Queen Nandi's ungodly rituals and decided against it, according to Skinner. The 21-year-old then ended the relationship in May and headed to Scotland with her then 8-month-old daughter, whose father was no longer in the picture, Skinner said. Now, the Times speaks to the mother who remembers Taylor's teenage years a little differently. Whitehead, 45, said her daughter, a straight-A student who wanted to be a lawyer, had been brainwashed by the couple. Her daughter started seeing a psychologist in 2021 and is vulnerable. She fears Taylor is pregnant after Taylor said in a recent social media video that she was acting as a surrogate for the Queen. It is absolutely insane that they're trying to convince this girl to have a baby. Like, didn't she just have a baby? Where is that baby? Now, the Times article continues and it gets very, very dark. Yeah, even darker than that. Speaking to the Times from her home in Dallas, Whitehead said, "This cult is crazy. They pose a threat to everyone around them. I don't want my daughter dead." She, Whitehead, claimed that 2 former handmaidens were missing, presumed dead. Kaura is very vulnerable, she added. She's not capable of taking care of herself. She is in a trance. However, Taylor recently posted a video in which she said, "To the UK authorities, obviously I am not missing. Leave me alone. I'm an adult, not a helpless child." Okay, first off, to me, that "I'm an adult, not a helpless child" line, that seems very coached. But that is based on instinct. That's based on what I'm seeing. I don't know this girl personally, but American Gen Zs, they don't use those kind of words. They don't use the word helpless very much. That's the vocabulary that is in these people's videos. Also, where are these missing women? What happened to them? I hope the Scottish authorities are investigating these claims because that's a very serious claim. Ms. Whitehead does not seem to think that these Scottish authorities are doing much at all. She claims they're doing next to nothing. Whitehead said that her agony has been compounded by the Scottish authorities' alleged refusal to give her custody of her granddaughter, now 1 year old, whom officials rescued from the camp. Apparently, the baby was taken from the camp because it's not safe to have a baby in this camp. And this is not unique to Kaura's baby. On their YouTube page, this couple, particularly Queen Nandi, talks about how the UK authorities came and took their natural children. They took custody of Ofe and Gasho's children because other Zimbabweans reported them to the UK Child Protective Services for their strange practices.
Zimbabweans in their hundreds made calls, because even for Zimbabweans, they also say that what we do is not normal as Black people. They say, why are you doing this in a white man's country? You cannot practice your African spirituality in this country. So they were calling social services, they were calling the police to say, go and get the children.
Now, just watching that video, this woman seems very sympathetic to me. She's articulate and she's also pregnant at the time. So my first thought was not, oh, she's a predator. In the video, she talks about how the people of Stockton, which is a different town, which they ran out of, the people of Stockton ran them out of town. It's crazy because multiple mobs are coming at these people. And you're like, oh my God, that is horrible. And then you learn more and you're like, do these mobs have a point? Am I sympathizing with them like I sympathize with the Frankenstein mob? Just asking. Anyway, how did this happen? How did Taylor end up in Scotland? The Times interview with her mother sheds some light on this. In a different life, Taylor would have become a lawyer, her mother said. She was popular and did well at school, where she was a member of the chess club. Every other weekend, she would get her nails done and visit the mall with her mother or one of her aunts. But during the pandemic, Taylor became more insular. When she returned to school in October 2021, she no longer seemed like herself, her teacher said. Something was wrong, Whitehead added. The pandemic strikes again. Now, I personally know a number of people whose lives were disrupted, let's say, and they were disrupted going forward because of the pandemic, because they stayed home and they got online and they became radicalized, but in various different movements. So the pandemic and the lockdown really affected a lot of people. Goes on. She had a falling out with her mother the following January. The relationship deteriorated and Taylor went to live with an aunt. She turned down a paid-for scholarship at a law school in Atlanta, Georgia, insisting she wanted to go to a cosmetology school in Dallas instead, Whitehead said. So according to her mother, the pandemic and the lockdown preceded Taylor's downward spiral in life. Then she went to live with her aunt. Now, this from Taylor's Facebook. Yes, I am very happy with my king and queen. I was never missing. I fled a very abusive, toxic family who abused me sexually since I was a child. So you don't go missing to your abusers, Taylor said in a Facebook post on August 20th. Now, unfortunately, we have to take current cult members' recollection of their families with a grain of salt. Now, I'm going to read a quick passage from this book called Cults and Our Myths by Margaret Singer, Version of Personal History. Another thing is called running your own dirty story, meaning make your history sound the worst possible. Such revision of history is used in both live-in and live-out cults, and the cult's general purpose in the exercise is to let members see why being with us is the right place to be. New members got the idea right away that they were to tell only sad, negative, unwholesome events, recount only disastrous relationships, and end with praise about the group. They were never to tell about good times, fine parents, loving siblings, hardworking relatives, or positive life experiences. Families had to be portrayed as abusive, alcoholic, uncaring, self-centered, bourgeois or capitalist, or otherwise despicable. Taylor's family denies all allegations of abuse. This is from The Independent. However, Taylor's relatives on Thursday pushed back stridently against those assertions, describing her younger years as very sheltered and protected. Allen said Taylor was brought up in church, but not their religion. Not this thing that they got going. It's a bunch of hogwash. Now, unfortunately, brainwashing can be so complete that people misremember their childhoods through the lens of the cult, the current cult ideology. Now, Taylor may be telling the truth as she now understands it, or maybe she did come from a sexually abusive, toxic family. We can't make that call until Taylor is out of the cult and remembering things clearly. Now, statistically, women are much less likely to sexually abuse than men, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's not unheard of. Now, the Times article says, in 2023, Taylor's partner at the time, the father of her child, introduced her online to the Kingdom of Kubala. But the Post says that it was Taylor connected with the kingdom in 2023, allegedly discovering the Facebook group of the Kingdom of Kubala through a high school classmate. The Times reported the following. They sent Taylor money as she shared her struggles with them, as well as photos of herself dressed in facial paint and costume. People, you gotta talk to your daughters. No one wanted to see pictures of them in costumes or whatever. Anyone saying, oh, send me pictures is doing that for the girls' benefit. Girls, you are a walking steak. And sending pictures of yourself in costume to people online, it's like drenching yourself in A1 and sending photos to a lion. Why would you do that? Anyway, on May 18th of this year, Taylor, who was living with her aunt, left Dallas and flew to the UK on a 6-month tourist visa. She filed a missing persons report in Dallas and Scotland, but because Taylor is an adult, the authorities could not intervene until her visa expired, when she could be legally deported. I love legal technicalities like this. It's the tax evasion of cult drama because, yes, she is an adult and we run into this problem all the time. You can't kidnap people. It's hard to prove brainwashing in court. So Taylor has free will and she is allowed to run off with Scotland with strangers she met online. It's just the way it is. Whitehead said the group had been active for 8 years and that her daughter was the fifth girl to have been ensnared. Another American woman who claimed to be a former handmaiden reached out to Whitehead in June, saying Taylor and her daughter were in danger. She claimed 2 women recruited before her had never been found after joining the tribe. Like Taylor, the woman had a difficult relationship with her family and became close to the couple. She said the first few months were great after she arrived, Whitehead said. but they started pressuring her as to why she wasn't pregnant yet. She eventually managed to run away. So I'm reading this. I have to wonder, did they run away? Is this source even trustworthy? The Times is printing it, but they are distancing themselves by putting it off on this unknown source, who probably doesn't want to come forward anyway. Still, they did print it. Now, the article ends with, Whitehead fears what will happen if Taylor gets pregnant. I need them to open their eyes and take a look at what Kaura is doing and who she's with, she said. Evidently, she is not capable of making decisions that are good for her and her child. So send her home. I am her mother. I will ensure she gets the help that she needs. Now, this is the problem with cults. It's obvious to us that Kaura is not capable of making decisions for herself, at least right now, but legally she's an adult. So we're going to have to wait for that visa to expire. Now, it looks like the people in the area are fed up with them. This is the second time this has happened, the second area. This is a story from the Telegraph titled, Tribe in the Scottish Woods Attacked with Rocks. A tribe that established camp in a Scottish forest were attacked by locals who threw rocks and called them delusional. One of the men in the footage said, "This is a rapist cult and I will always stick to that." Well, honestly, Ms. Whitehead, Kaura's mother, would agree with him. As would the woman who ran away. In another video posted to Miss Gasha's Facebook on Tuesday, a woman was recorded entering their encampment and trying to pull the tents down. The SBC member for Jedburgh, Scott Hamilton, called for an end to mob mentality, even though the group's ludicrous accusations of heritage and history are upsetting. Jean said that members of the public called police as they witnessed the tribe being racially attacked and harassed on TikTok Live by over 15 people from the Jedburgh community. A further video shows the police arriving and asking the tribe if the alleged attackers hurt them in any way or destroyed their property. All of the victims are Black as well. There are Black young women who are being used as surrogates or attempting to be used as surrogates. I would just like to point out that the Africans who have a problem with them, the Black Africans in the UK who have a problem with them, reported them to authorities in a civilized manner. It is the native population, the native white population, that is attacking them like a mob of street urchins. No comment, I am just saying. Now look, that mob of street urchins may be racist. It looks like they're hurling racial epithets at these people. But also, this couple has brainwashed this poor young girl and perhaps impregnated her. Also, where are the other women? I think this goes far beyond accusations of heritage at this point when there are people missing. Well, you let me know what you think. Do you think Taylor will come back to her family? Are the Scottish authorities completely clueless, or is there more going on behind the scenes? I sure hope that they are doing something about this because this is awful, at least trying to locate these other women. Now, one point I would like to learn is if Kaura Taylor is suffering from some kind of postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis. It would seem that she was also already having psychological problems as far back as 2021. Could the baby and the childbirth process have exacerbated it? That's something we need to look into. Now, I really hope that Miss Whitehead gets her daughter back. You can do everything right as a parent and still your child can be radicalized online. My only advice is to teach them about cult tactics and brainwashing techniques. And I don't think that most people even consider that because they don't consider it as a possibility for them or their child. Also, Kaura, if you ever see this video, it is the easiest thing in the world to change your name. This story is all over the world. It's all over the news. You're infamous right now. But you would be shocked how fast you can disappear and change your name. You might say, oh, but my picture's out there. Whatever. Change your hair. If someone says, oh, you look like so-and-so, you just say, oh yeah, I do kind of look like her, huh? A lot of people look like a lot of other people. Move to a big city and you can have a normal life without all the notoriety. 21 is very young and you don't want your whole life ruined because of a downward spiral you had before your prefrontal cortex was even fully developed. Or you can own it and you can explain to others how it happened to you and how they can learn from it. But look, this one bad patch doesn't define who you are forever. All that matters is your health and your baby's health, or multiple babies. That's all that matters. Okay, thank you, and I will see you next week.